I had this particular desire to do something for women. My husband said, oh, why don't you just start a newsletter or something, start a magazine? So I said, I have no clue about what to do.
Hi, it's your girl Maxie, aka Amaka, Amax, or Mwamaka, as my mom calls me. I enjoy gisting, I enjoy having conversations, and I have really impactful ones with the people that I come across. And I thought to sit down and have a series and document these important conversations that I'm having. And I'm going to start off with the conversation that I'm having with Adesuwa Onyenokwe, also known as my mother, but I call her AO. And she is the founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Today's Woman magazine. And I sit with her as she takes us through the journey of her business, of her brand, of her legacy. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this scintillating conversation that I'm having with AO in a 3-part series where you get to understand a little bit more about Today's Woman and the brand's story. Enjoy.
Good morning, good afternoon, could be good evening. Depends on when they're watching this actually. So any time in the world, just say, let's say good day. Good day. Good day, everyone. My name is Amaka Onyenokwe, and I have the ever beautiful, ever fabulous Adesuwa Onyenokwe beside me, the founder, creator, CEO, editor-in-chief of Today's Woman magazine, Nigeria. I am honored to sit down here with you today. The last time we did this was, I think, about 2 years ago.
But that was a conversation. It was not necessarily about TW.
This is a conversation too.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay, this is a conversation too, and a conversation discussing who you are, what your brand is, really expressing TW through the times.
Wow.
And before we even get to TW, whenever anybody mentions TW, even with me, the first thing they say is Adesuwa Onyenokwe, Adesuwa Onyenokwe. So you are the brand, really, the face. Can you take us back to pre-TW magazine?
Ooh. The thing is, I didn't realize that direction we were going to go with this. We agreed. We said we want this new generation to understand the trajectory, how we got to where we are today. So asking me to tell a story, which I've granted tons of interviews that have all these indications. So maybe coming from you, you might be able to get something juicier. Is that what you're hoping?
I mean, yes, I would say that I had like a front row seat of the development of the brand up until maybe about 2006. Which is when I moved away. But I want people to understand the foundation of why you did what you did, because all they're seeing is this magazine, but you're a full media guru. You started in TV and you transitioned into doing TV, running shows on a network, and then transitioning into creating your own show called Today's Woman.
Okay.
So I think it will be nice to take people through, and maybe the newer generation, people who we don't really understand what TW is. So it'll be nice to hear it again, fresh from,
Okay, I'll give you that. But again, it's good to know that I actually do not own that name, Today's Woman.
And that's fine.
No, the interesting thing is, in trying to do something more than what I did as a reporter with the Nigerian Television Authority, I go out on the streets, I'm interviewing people, and I find that women were more reluctant to tell their stories. So I thought, and then considering the fact when I was having you guys, I was having more kids, less time to be able to do all I wanted to do, less in control of my time. I was thinking, what else could you do that you could be at home? Be your own boss. I was ready to go and sell groundnut. I didn't. So we sat down, my husband and I, to say, okay, so what can you do? Communication for me is what I breathe. And it's a function of what I like to see people understand themselves or see themselves in others or take them through things and give them a better understanding that they can be better people, for benefits of that. And I've always been about women because women first. I believe that when women are together, the world is together. When women are in the right space, because all the information that we get, if we get the right kind of information, it can help us be better. And so what better way than to have the kind of models, and you see in the environment that you live, you see women who are like you and who are achieving their dreams. It doesn't have to be everybody's dreams, but achieving their dreams and still able to give back to society, because that's part of what life is. It's a cycle. I decided, okay, do something. And we thought, hey, when I say we, my husband and I on the dining table, why don't you, because prior I'd begun doing documentaries on the side. You're working, you're thinking of things you can do, covering people's activities and doing documentaries for them and earning a bit of a buck on the side. So because I had this particular desire to do something for women, my husband said, oh, why don't you just start a newsletter or something, start a magazine. So I said, I have no clue about what to do. So why don't I start with a newsletter?
Okay.
Which is something like what we call, the newsletter.
Yeah, there's still newsletters, more digital than anything.
With the idea of telling the stories of women so that other women can read it and be encouraged and inspired. So I said, okay, let's do a newsletter. And in the course of trying to do a newsletter, we thought, why not magazine? In the course of trying to do a magazine, somebody came up with the exact same name I wanted to give my magazine, which was Flair. And so we said, okay, I'd left the Nigerian Television Authority. They were calling me back. I was now working as a contract staff, where they were paying me to present.
Okay.
Something.
And what were you presenting?
Morning Ride.
Morning Ride.
Morning Ride was a morning show. So I was earning what I was earning in a month by doing one edition of Morning Ride every morning, because Morning Ride was a paid activity. It was a paid program. As a contractor. So I realized, again, my husband said, why don't you just, this is your magazine, put it on television so that people can watch. I said, television is expensive. He said, no, you know you can make money out of it. Why don't you talk to your bosses? So it's a long story. I started Today's Woman. And now thinking, I had thought about Flair for the name of the magazine.
Flair,
because it's a flair for life, a flair, something breezy, something that gives you, well, Flair, I guess then, that's what I was thinking. But Ike,
were you also thinking, sorry to cut you off, were you also thinking glam? Because when I think Flair, I'm thinking,
because what I'm about,
glam.
Absolutely, glam, but centered.
Okay.
That's the ethos of my being, where you can be glam, but with meaning and with sense, So Ike it was that said, why don't you just call it Today's Woman? I'm like, Today's Woman, not blah, it's so ordinary. He says, no, but Today's Woman is Today's Woman. Isn't it about Today's Woman? Reluctantly, I said, okay, why not? So we started off the TV show as Today's Woman, which was principally what the magazine did, bring a person to the studio, talk to the person, but we had a telephone. In those days, there was a telephone, you could call into the studio, and they would talk and chat.
So were people coming up with questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Based on the guest.
So we have like 15 minutes conversation with the guest, then we open the lines for another 15 minutes. So if we could get 1 or 2 calls, that'd be fine. So it was good, and I was doing that, producing. I got the credit
yourself as
absolutely,
well.
but I got a young start to be an assistant producer. But it was something I could do on my own because I was using the NTA facilities. They had everything, so they were charging me for using their space and for the time. So in 6 editions, I was able to run around and get a few advertising, and so that happened. It was in 2000 that what became Today's Woman in print started. When that started, it was simply because I was tired of doing something where I didn't have full control. I didn't own my television station. I didn't desire to own my television station at that time. Well, I didn't desire because then, it was a function of who you knew, you applied, you had to have money.
Wait, and I really 2008?
2007.
Oh, 2007.
Okay. The show started in 2000. So 7 years after.
7 years.
Yes. It was year 7 that the magazine came to life.
Lucky number 7.
Oh, well, I guess, and life has been like cyclical for every 7 years, there is a change. And that's what's happening again this time. Every 7 years, there's been a change, which is not conscious, but it's happened. So 2007, the magazine started with the same aim. Glam with sense, glam with grounding, glam with, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Glam that inspires, not just because you look good, but because you can make your life better, my life better, everybody's life around you better, considering the next person. So we started, that's how Today's Woman started. So that's the history.
Wow. And what was that like, jumping into a new, I guess, sphere in terms of media? And it's still the same content, still the same information, still the same message, still the same values, but a different medium.
Absolutely.
So what was that like? Was it challenging? And did, because you've been in business magazine-wise since 2007. That's right. 16, 17 years.
We're in our 17th year now.
Yeah. So what was that like? Were you scared? Were you afraid?
I was
confident?
And it's interesting, and I think I haven't really, well, I was worried, but that set me on a path which eventually, possibly, it's like you don't realize how much you have until you try it. I'd never done print. I was even reluctant to do print, but 2 other magazines had come out locally, and one of them belonged to a friend of mine. So I was like, they've already started doing, let me ignore it, you know. But later I said, look, if you have a dream, just pursue it. There's no harm in trying it. And I felt there was still a gap I could fill. So 2007, I decided to bring in, because I had friends who've been telling me, hey, look, do magazine, let's create this whole media company that we're going to produce all kinds of things. I said, that's what I want to do. A big media company that's not just print. It's television, it's print, and you know, it's everything. It's theater, you know, it's because it's everything entertaining and informative and educative. I want to be everywhere. We did 2 shows in the effort of trying to do many things. Vertically Mobile was showing a business kind of show. People who are successful on a Vertically Mobile. And then, what did we call, I have to check. We had one for the physically challenged that I had a young man, I'm sure you remember that guy, Chooks, that had one arm, his arm was
amputated?
No, he was born that way with one arm, very little. I know I introduced you to one of the times he came home. He was the one that made me begin to look at diversity. So we had a show we called Disability, I'm not sure what we called it, Ability and Disability or something. And we did a series, which I ran on television. And then Vertically Mobile, it is a series as well.
At the same time that the magazine was running?
Absolutely. So I was doing these things on television because I had a group of friends came together. Let's start this thing. Let's do TW Media, which would do all of these things. But I realized very quickly that it was my dream. They were just supporting me. And somewhere along the line, it was becoming too much of a load for me to carry. I said, hey, look, I can't keep doing all of this. You guys, there's a limit to the support you can. And it's stretching yourself too thin. You need money to be able to continue doing what you're doing. So I'll pack it in and maybe come back to it later.
Now, has this business always been self-funded, like originally?
Absolutely.
Wow.
You have to start with your money. But the way it works is, you have a product, you find people who believe in your product and they pay for it. With television, it was having people place the advertising within the half hour you're on television. So you produce a 30-minute show and you leave like 2-minute, 3-minute window. So your show should ideally be 25. Now what happens in Nigeria is, internationally you have a 28-minute production.
So what, 2 minutes is left for?
Yeah, 2-3 minutes is 2 or 3 minutes for advertising, because you don't want to bore people with advertising. You know, you want to break people, even fast forward. So now there's endorsements and stuff like that. But what you happen in Nigerian television stations, they want to keep their 2 minutes and they give you 28 to work with. So if your show is popular, they can sneak their own ads in at the tail end
to reduce your time.
So anyway, however, I mean, this is besides the point. This is just history.
Yes.
At the end of the day, Today's Woman magazine started, and it's been a journey. A journey. I didn't know about print, but I did ask questions. I employed someone who had done some level of magazine production because she had produced a community newspaper. So I took her as an assistant editor because you need someone to be able to do the pagination, how do you do flat plan and stuff like that. So that's how I started.
I love that. I mean, what we're doing right now is really the story behind Today's Woman.
Absolutely.
And the first edition, you said you had yourself on the cover.
Yes,
what
that's
was that
interesting.
Like, did you decide to do that
I
initially?
didn't plan to do that. What I had thought we would do is have all the ladies who were part of it, who believed in my dream to start. But before you start anything, you've got to do market research. And market research at that time meant talking to the vendors, talking to the advertisers, what kind of things are they looking for in magazines. And every time they heard, because I was already doing Today's Woman on television.
Of course.
So they said, Today's Woman, no, but that's one way. Because the vendors are in charge. That one way, Adesuwa Onyenokwe. Because as a reporter, my name was very attractive. Adesuwa Onyenokwe. And I guess I did a great job. People never forgot.
You did. Hello.
People never did forget.
And they haven't forgotten, just so you know.
Okay. So they said, no, it would be better for magazines on the street. It's only face that they know they will buy you. So reluctantly, we put my face on the cover.
You were reluctant?
Of course, because it wasn't really about me. You know, but then since it was the first
strategy. So
we said, okay, so they put me for recognizability, but that first edition did speak to all the other women who supported me were there. And the title was New Beginnings, because it's a new beginning.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry to cut it short, but catch us next week for the next part of these conversations. Mwah.